Welcome to Terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Penny Dreadful, and I am looking forward to bringing you today's episode with Patrick McCray to talk about his new Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant. But before we get to the show, I have lots of exciting news for you. Happy anniversary to Dark Shadows, 60 years of Dark Shadows and still going strong, certainly based on the news that we've been getting lately. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this news because I could have devoted an entire episode to all of this information. So I'll try to keep it concise, but there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about here. So first of all, the big, gigantic bombshell news, I would say, is the announcement that Warner Brothers Animation is in development on a new Dark Shadows animated series. Now, just to be clear, because I've seen some misconceptions online, this is not the Flintstones. This is not Woody Woodpecker. This is a serious adult animated series, which animated series for adults have been a thing for many years now. So let's talk about it. From the press release, Warner Brothers Animation is resurrecting tormented vampire Barnabas Collins as it is currently in development on an adult animated series based on the classic Gothic sensation Dark Shadows. Created by Dan Curtis and celebrating its 60th anniversary this summer, Dark Shadows starred TV's original anti-hero and the father of the modern-day vampire, Barnabas Collins, a vampire with a conscience. The project was announced during a studio-focused panel at the 2026 Annecy International Animation Film Festival, where Warner Brothers Animation's Peter Girardi and Shailene Desai previewed the studio's current adult animation slate. No network has been announced, no streaming platform has been announced. This is still in development. This will be an adult animated series continuing the saga of the Collins family, blending Gothic, horror, and supernatural genres. The coming adaptation promises all the dark twists and romantic intrigue that defined the transformational series across its 1,200-plus episode run. The executive producer and showrunner is Lisa Holdsworth, who also was the lead writer on Discovery of Witches. And executive producers on the show are Kathy and Tracy Curtis, who are Dan Curtis's daughters, Eric Homan, who was a producer on Castlevania and Adventure Time, as was Frank Siebert, Kevin Coldy. This is very exciting news, folks. I was interviewed by Ed Gross for Woman's World about this animated series that's in development. And I said, Dark Shadows needs a shot in the arm like this. I know there are some people that are not into animation, but think about what can be done with animation that would be very expensive to do in live action. You could see all of Collinsport. Just imagine. You don't have to worry about special effects because they're animated, right? There's so many amazing things that could be done with this, and there are some very passionate people involved in this who are huge fans of Dark Shadows, and I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. And I'd say the vast majority of people I have seen responding online have been very enthusiastic, or at the very least, intrigued by the idea. However, I did see some naysayers out there before this thing has even gotten off the ground. It's still in the works. It's still in development. It hasn't even been greenlit yet. People are already hating on the idea. It's like, guys, please wait until the show actually comes out, if it comes out, and judge after that how you feel about it. Don't go into this saying, I don't want this to happen. That's a bad look for the fandom. Don't be that fandom, okay? There are enough fandoms out there where people are like that. Don't do that. Try to be open-minded about this until you actually see it, right? Think about how excited you were, most of you, when the 91 series was announced. There were some people that didn't want any remake at all, and I get that. But the vast majority of people were at least open-minded to the idea and excited about it. And granted, that was live action. This is animation. It's a completely different medium. It is a medium that Dark Shadows has not yet conquered, okay? And there was an attempt to do an animated series back in the early 2000s. It was pitched and it didn't go anywhere. This one has actually moved along to the point where Warner Brothers announced it at a big animation festival. So please keep an open mind until you actually see it, because it sounds really cool. It doesn't sound like the Tim Burton movie. It doesn't sound like Scooby-Doo, which I saw a lot of people remarking Scooby-Doo. It's not Scooby-Doo. It's not humorous. This is a Gothic drama. It's just in animated form. Give it a shot. See what you think of it first before saying, no, I don't want this. come on. But I will say the vast majority of people are very excited about it, and it's spreading like wildfire all over the internet. So I've gotten tons of messages about it. Just that idea of doing something new with Dark Shadows doesn't erase the old Dark Shadows, and in fact, all it will help do is bring attention to the original Dark Shadows. This might result in more licensing and merchandising for the original show. In fact, if the show's a hit, I guarantee that's going to happen. You might like it, keep an open mind to it. A lot of folks like the Ross novels, which are very different from the show. They were not created by anybody involved with the show, but they had characters from the show and stories that were set in that world. Let's wait first and watch it, if it happens. But any news I hear, I will certainly mention it. Also keep an eye on the Dark Shadows news page, because announcements are made there as well, and that's on Facebook and I think on Twitter too. So let's continue on here, because there's a lot more news that I have for you. From the Dark Shadows news page, we're pleased to announce that a unique film has been found capturing the show's cast and crew at work in the studio. Shot by the BBC in 1968, the piece was screened once and then never seen again. Researcher Stuart Manning located the misfiled 16mm color film after a 2-year search prompted by a press cutting mentioning the BBC's visit. The behind-the-scenes footage runs to 6 minutes, with another 15 minutes interviewing series creator Dan Curtis. The full story of its discovery will appear in the new issue of the charity fanzine Daytime Gothic, for which the Dark Shadows news page will be announcing ordering details in the coming days. So keep an eye out for that. And also, I know that part of it was screened at the UCLA Hammer Museum event, so the fans who attended that did get to see some of this, and I'm very much hoping that it will be screened at the 60th anniversary Dark Shadows event, because I really want to see this. The Dark Shadows Legacy book is now available for pre-order from Amazon for $39.99. It will be available at the Dark Shadows 60th Anniversary Festival, and you can get it signed in person there, and it'll be available through MPI eventually as well, but you can pre-order it right now on Amazon for $39.99. And if you haven't listened to the Dark Shadows Legacy book episode I did a couple of episodes back with John Logan and Catherine Lee Scott, please do check it out. They do discuss it in that episode, and here's some information if you missed that one. Dark Shadows Legacy is a photographic odyssey through the entire Dark Shadows universe, a coffee table book that presents the full Dark Shadows experience with guest essays and rare photographs from the original 1966 series, the feature films, the 1991 revival series, behind-the-scenes pictures, as well as exploring the merchandising and fan phenomena. Dark Shadows Legacy is a celebration of the show's 60th anniversary and honors its long and important legacy. And it's being published by Cumberland Press Books. Edited by Catherine Lee Scott and John Logan, with a beautiful cover by Mark Maddox. And so many wonderful essays by a variety of people, cast members from all versions of Dark Shadows, creators who've been involved with the brand, fans, great images, artwork. It is a love letter to Dark Shadows. Definitely, you want to grab that. And as always, the link is in the show notes. Speaking of books, just announced is the Collins Family album book by Rich Hanley and art by Aaliyah Shockley, and they're going to be coming on in the next episode to talk all about the Collins Family album. And here's the announcement from Chinbeard Books, who are publishing this. We at Chinbeard Books are delighted to announce, on the exact date the TV series Dark Shadows aired on American television 60 years ago, the upcoming publication of a very unique tome, the Collins Family album, written and researched by Rich Hanley, illustrated by Aaliyah Shockley, designed by Robert Hammond. This is a book referenced and seen on screen during the show's series run whenever a bit of family history was sought or needed. But we've brought it to life. This will be a crowd-funded entity via Indiegogo and available to pledge for on July 30th. A deluxe A4-sized hardback of over 300 pages and fully illustrated. Keep your eyes peeled for the link coming soon. And I can tell you folks, this thing is absolutely mind-boggling. The amount of material in this book, substantial reference book that you're going to be looking at here, that covers Collins family members from every iteration of Dark Shadows. Every single, up to this point, of course, from the most obscure one-time name drop on a gravestone characters to Barnabas. It's just got all the Collins family members in it, from the Ross novels, the Gold Key comics, you name it, it's in there. This 1988 stage play, It's all in there. So Rich has done, I can't even fathom the amount of work he put into this. So, and you're going to hear all about it when he's on the episode. And Aaliyah's artwork, I've gotten some glimpses at that too, and it's phenomenal. And there's some great essays in there. Stuart Manning wrote an essay, Craig Hurd McKinney wrote an essay, Ansel Farage. I was delighted also to write an essay for Rich's book. I think it's the forward for the book. So lots of really cool stuff. Keep your eyes out for the episode I'm doing with Rich and Lee. I think it's going to be episode 134, so that'll be coming out soon. Now, more news from Big Finish. Our old friends at Big Finish are back in action here, and they're going to be releasing a new 4-disc anniversary CD of the Dark Shadows audio dramas, Return to Collinwood. So that's coming back out again. And this time, it's also going to include Vengeance at Collinwood. It's limited to 1,000 copies. For more information, visit bigfinish.com. Just some background here. Return to Collinwood was produced in 2003, performed by the original cast, continuing the Dark Shadows story in the present day. Vengeance at Collinwood, its 2005 sequel, was never studio recorded for release, but is presented as a recording of its one live performance at the Dark Shadows Festival. A bonus disc features Jonathan Frid performing readings of 2 classic short stories, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe and The Water Ghost by Harrowby Hall and John Kendrick Banks, along with a radio interview from 1968. So keep your eyes on the Dark Shadows news page for more information on that, or if I hear anything else, I will announce it on the podcast. It is available for pre-order now. I have already pre-ordered mine. If you pre-order the CD, you also get the download with it, or you can just buy the download itself, and that's going to be coming soon. I'm really looking forward to, I've heard Return to Collinwood, but many of us have never heard Vengeance at Collinwood, so I'm very excited to hear that. San Diego Comic-Con is coming up in July, and Hermes Press is having a Dark Shadows panel. Per Craig Hurd McKinney, the writer of the Curse of Dark Shadows graphic novel, it is usually on Friday afternoon from 3 to 4. They haven't announced the schedule yet, but that's usually when it is. Jock, Gervasio, Carlos, Aeon, and Craig will be signing throughout the event. Times will be determined. So pop by the Hermes Press table if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, and definitely check out the panel as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think Catherine Lee Scott will be there as well. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure she will be. And don't forget that tickets for the Dark Shadows 60th Anniversary Festival are available over on Eventbrite. So head on over there, grab your tickets if you want to go. Link is in the show notes. And with that said, let's get to the show.
That glisten. There are spoilers here for those who listen.
Welcome to the strange and unsettling world of terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Penny Dreadful, and I am delighted to be joined once again by my friend Patrick McCray, who's returning to Terror at Collinwood to discuss his new Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant. He is a Rondo Award-winning writer, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook and Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. Patrick was also a comic book writer for Revolutionary Comics, creating the underground cult hit Elvis Shrugged. He later wrote top-selling biographies of Betty White, Jack Dorsey, Britney Spears, and Elvis Presley. With an MFA in directing and having directed over 80 stage plays, he also co-produced and co-starred in the lauded audio series Star Trek: The Continuing Mission. As a webmaster, you can see his work at catherineleescott.com. Welcome back to the show, Patrick.
Thank you. I may remain the Buck Henry, or one of the Buck Henrys of your show.
I don't know if there are any other Buck Henrys, unless I've had Buck Henry himself. We could have a seance. And that's one thing I haven't done yet on this show, is have like a live seance to contact.
Who would you have? Who would you contact?
That's a very good question. Probably Emery Bass.
Hey, why?
Because then I want to find out what death was really like in comparison to his portrayal of death. He could compare
Fair
and
enough.
contrast, you know. How
Fair
about
enough.
you?
Oh gosh, if I could talk to anyone from the cast, John Carlin.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, John Carlin.
It'd be
As long
hilarious.
as
Oh
he
my
would be
God.
cranky, complaining about something, there'd be no Polish food up there.
It would,
Yeah, he'd be upset. He'd want me to lay some money on the ponies for him. It'd be great, and I would.
So John Carlin, I imagine what a, there are living Dark Shadows actors I still want to get on the show. I tried to get Roger Davis back in December, but alas, I didn't hear back from him. But I'd like to try for Roger again and Lisa Richards. What's
Lisa
that?
Richards is great. She's a wonderful guest.
Yeah, I'd love to have Lisa Richards on, and gosh, there's still so many that the Donna McKechnie I haven't had on yet. So hopefully I can get some of those guests on.
Weird Lisa Richards connection.
Uh,
In the introduction, I talk about how important Henry Jaglom was to the writing of some of the book, and Henry
yeah,
Jaglom's biggest hit starred Lisa Richards eating.
eating. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. That was like in the early 90s, wasn't it? When that,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yep, yep, I remember that. But I want to get to talking about the Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant. But before we get to that, you've been producing some incredible Dark Shadows themed busts of a
Oh, thank
variety of
you.
characters that are unbelievably cool. And
Hold on. Hold on. I
I
got mine
think the
here.
fans need to
That's
know
not
about
even
this.
anyway. Let's see. All various sizes. It's like a family. It's like Weebles or something. Because I've been trying to decide like what size to fix upon. I'm sure the empty chair is fascinating for your guests. Yeah. I feel like a homeless man. I got 10 busts.
Here are my heads.
Did someone say Professor Stokes?
There he is.
That was the
Wow,
first one I made.
that's awesome.
And let's see, that's too small. Let's just uh maybe Count Petofi.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Um,
With the hand.
I've got a Will Loomis.
Oh, parallel time.
Yeah,
William
parallel time
Hollinshead
Will
Loomis.
Loomis.
That's a
Uh,
cool choice because most people would just go Willie, but doing the parallel time Willie is awesome with the ascot and everything. Really cool.
I have a few others. I got a Schofield. I got a not Paul Schofield, but
Bill
uh,
Malloy, yeah, Bill
or
Malloy.
Bill Malloy. I got a
I'll
Bill
show
Malloy
the picture on the screen. Yeah,
and
Magda Rakosi.
Magda. I got a Magda.
Yeah.
And let's see if we got anybody else here. Oh yeah, this is by request. Uh, so when I was doing these, I had to think of who would be commissioning these busts. In the real world of
Yeah.
Dark Shadows, whatever that is, and how they would have them. Someone suggested Crazy Jenny, and I thought, well, there's no way anyone would hire a sculptor to remember her like that. So instead, I have Sane Jenny.
Oh, yeah, Sane
Yeah,
Jenny with the
holding
baby.
the baby.
Yeah, that's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, thank you. I think it's a pretty good likeness.
It
Uh,
is. Yeah.
so I've got a bunch of them, and I'm either going to have them for sale at the convention, or because I think I've settled on maybe this size.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great size.
although
Yeah.
I can do them up to about that size.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do that. I may have them. And Ansel Farage, I'm telling you, your living room is going to be full of these busts. So if I do that, or something I don't want to do, but Alan suggested it, and he's probably right. And that is just have examples and take orders.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, you could do it that way.
Responsibility.
That way you don't have to drag like tons of these busts
Well,
to.
that's why I would mail them to Ansel's.
Yeah.
Which he
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
know about yet. Uh,
Surprise,
they
Edsel.
don't weigh much.
Yeah, I saw some
So
of the other ones you do, like Nicholas Blair, Judah
we got
Zachary.
Nicholas Blair, Judah Zachary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So really cool. So at the 60th, you're going to be at Catherine Lee Scott's table, right?
Yes.
So people can come and check out the busts and the day books at Catherine's table, and so potentially pre-orders for these. So, folks, if this is something you're interested in, definitely go which I'm sure everybody's going to be interested in this because these are really cool. And if you want to head over to Catherine's table to say hi to Catherine and Patrick, you can check out these busts in person and hopefully pre-order some of them. And I assume
Or
maybe
buy them.
or
You might
buy them. Yeah,
just buy them there.
yeah. So you'll have some available for sale on the spot.
I think so.
Do you know
Yeah.
how much they're going to be?
I don't. What would be a good what would be a good price point? I mean, I thought for something like this, the labor, the everything else that's involved, I thought maybe 50.
50. Yeah, I think 50 is
Is
fair.
that
That's
okay?
fair. That's very fair. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
50 is good. Yeah. So people can come to your table, they can get them there. And I'm sure you're going to probably be getting a lot of requests for multiple characters. Are there any you have
Yes.
planned that you have in mind that you still plan to do or
I've gotten most of them out of the way. Bob the bartender.
Oh, Bob,
Um,
Bob the
I,
bartender. Yay.
I would love to do that. I would love to do getting really obscure Chuck Morgan as the suspiciously plump and well-fed zombie.
There you go. You could do
Um,
Mr. Best. I just mentioned Emery Bass. He could
Mr.
be
Best would be great.
with the hat.
Mr. Best would be good. I think Charles Delaware Tate.
Oh, yeah.
You would suggested Charles Delaware Tate. No, you had suggested Amanda Harris.
Oh,
I
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, because Charles
um,
Delaware Tate would create a bust of Amanda Harris, right?
but then there'd be another Amanda Harris running around.
But well,
It's like the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
yeah.
So yeah,
Very an interesting fanfic idea.
I think a Gregory Trask.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
He would have had one made. Minerva Trask would be even wacky.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, just scowling.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some that come to mind. Yeah, if we could rationalize Buzz,
Buzz would be great. Who would do one of Buzz though? That's the question. I
like
like your rationale behind it though. Like who somebody would have to be inspired to make a bust in the Dark Shadows universe of this person.
I have thought of one, although I don't know, I might get sued or something. That I think is a deep cut, but is really good, and be a bust of David Collins,
Uh-huh.
but it would be of David Hennessy now,
Oh, interesting.
because that's he would be at that
Yeah.
stage of life where he'd have a bust made, he'd
Yeah.
take on the family business, so that
That's a cool idea. David Collins today, but it's
yeah.
David Hennessy now. I like that. Yeah. Very cool. So I'm sure people are going to be posting comments in the YouTube version of this episode with their ideas and wish lists. So I'm sure you'll see some of that. But
There's one other I thought of.
oh yeah.
That's if I could do it, and that would be a Victoria Winters, but it would be three that would be put together, and you would sort of turn it, and one
yeah.
head with three faces, and you have Carolyn Groves
Yeah.
and Betsy Durkin
Yeah.
and Miss Isles.
Oh, that's perfect. That would be perfect. Now you mentioned you might also do a chess set with these. That's a cool idea too.
Mark Perry suggested that, and so I have the beginning of who would be on what side and how it would all work out, because they wouldn't be identical sides.
Yeah. You
But
could
you would
have John Yeager on one side and Cyrus Longworth on the other, or the werewolf.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, have the werewolf on one side and Chris Jennings on the other, or
Yes.
or Quentin and the werewolf or something.
Well, the pawns on one side are all Willie, and the
Oh.
pawns on the other side are all Aristide.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the king is the king on one side is oh gosh, who was it? It was Joshua.
Oh, Joshua.
Yeah.
Barnabas is not one of the kings.
No, I think Barnabas was the bishop
Okay. Yeah.
or the yeah. No,
Or the knight, the Dark Knight.
Quentin was the knight.
Oh, Quentin. Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
that works.
Shadow's the knight, of course, but also just in the way that he is the one character who can make crazy lateral moves when you least expect it.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Interesting.
tried to think about, when I was sussing it out, how the characters behave, and what, like, I think maybe as the bishop on one side, I had Julia.
Oh, Julia.
She
Okay.
can come at things from an interesting angle.
Yeah. Oh, totally. What about
Yeah.
Angelique?
I don't know if she was in there. I think she was maybe the queen on the naughty side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. Yeah. That's really cool. I don't know how you could make the board itself, but they probably sell
Supply your own.
supply your own board.
Supply
Yeah.
your own board.
Yeah, there you go.
Or on the
Those are
board
pretty
maker.
easy to get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, very cool, awesome. Lots of interesting ideas brewing here, and there are lots of interesting ideas in Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant,
Thank
which
you.
I love that you called it that.
Well, I threatened that on an episode of yours.
Yes, I remember because we were talking about the Batman sequel titles, and that they were the next one was going to be Batman Triumphant.
I wish I had done one in between. It would just be called Dark Shadows and Robin.
Dark Shadows and Rock.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably
Next
lead
time.
up to
Next
it.
time.
Mhm.
But I want to talk a little bit about this book because this is your third Dark Shadows Day book. And this one is over 360 pages, packed with lots of great, insightful, intelligent, and fun looks at a variety of episodes from the series. And I haven't finished it yet, but I'm a good way into it. And I did jump to the end to read your pre-Barnabas rundown, which is
I
hysterical.
covered every episode of the pre-Barnabas stuff,
You
every
did.
single one. You
You
asked
did.
for it, you got it.
You did. Yes, you did cover every single episode. In a way, you did. Yes, you did. It was. I'm going to read some quotes from that. And you have pieces in here by Catherine Lee Scott, John Logan, Mark B. Perry. So great essays
Very
forward
lucky.
and afterwards that I read that were really great, and an excellent introduction here. So, but before I get to that, I want to ask you what inspired you to do the third day book? You talk a little bit about it in the introduction, but tell us a little bit about what your impetus was for doing a third day book.
Well, good things come in threes. And there were a lot of essays that were still out there that had not been published. And I just didn't publish all of them. I published a number of them that kind of eluded the themes of the first two books, but were worth reading and were fun. Part of the experience of watching Dark Shadows isn't necessarily hitting the high points, because the high points come and go like that. Not that the rest are low points, but to be a Dark Shadows fan is to sort of be like a factory worker, and you clock in and you live with it. And most of our experience with the show is not with the bricks, it's with the mortar. It's with everything that puts it together. Well, in the first two books, I really tried to hit the high points for me of the series. And so the day-to-day joys of the characters who may not be involved in the high points, of the experience of watching the show, of living with it, all kind of, that was part of the Dark Shadows experience that wasn't covered. And that's where a lot of the humanity of the show is. That's where a lot of the humor of the show is, because you're not covering, things that are as heavy. And when I went back and looked at them, I thought, these are really delightful. These are a lot of fun. And so I thought, there might be some interest in that. And also, I had not just written about Dark Shadows for Collinwood Historical Society, I had also written about fellow travelers, about people who were sort of a part of that fandom universe or that television universe or that moment of culture, who, when they would pass away or something important would happen, were worth talking about and commemorating. And Wallace and I just had kind of a sense of who would make the cut and who wouldn't. So as much as I wanted him to, Roger Moore didn't. And I had a incredibly emotional piece about Roger Moore that never surfaced. But a lot of Robert Vaughn, however, did. And so I wanted to talk about that. And one of my favorite essays was about Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
And I start the book with that essay. And, one of my rationales for that, other than it's a piece of writing I'm very proud of, one of my rationales for that was that Nimoy, when you think of Dark Shadows as fandom and as a product, as a piece of culture, any television fandom is frankly an echo of the major television fandom, and of course, with conventions and all of that. And what is it? It's Star Trek. And we sometimes talked about Dark Shadows being the Star Trek of horror.
Yeah.
And that you really can't go to a convention without it being kind of in the shadow of a Dark Shadows convention or a shadow of a Star Trek convention, and that's fine. And when we think about Star Trek, who are we really thinking of? We're thinking Mr. Spock. I mean, at the end of the day, we're thinking of Mr. Spock. That's why this all exists. And when we think about Mr. Spock, we think about Leonard Nimoy. And so that seemed cosmically appropriate as kind of the spark for all of this. And so it begins with an essay about Nimoy, and all of the other essays, except for one, have the commemorative essays have episodes that go with it that are associated with something of the spirit of that person. So I think with Dorothy Fontana, it's about defiance. And what are episodes of Dark Shadows that seem to conjure up a sense of defiance? And so I can categorize those under her. But the first essay has nothing with it. It's just Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
And the last essay is just Laura Parker.
Yeah.
It seemed to be very appropriate. And so getting far too biblical for myself, but just as literal as I love to be, the first essay is for a chapter entitled Dark Shadows Genesis. And of course, last Dark Shadows Revelations for Laura Parker. So that idea kind of got me started, and then everything else kind of fell into place.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, when I started reading it, I saw the Star Trek, focused essays there on DC Fontana and Leonard Nimoy, and it was really interesting how you set that up thematically as well. And of course, I mean, just so many people who love Dark Shadows also love Star Trek too. So I think they're going to really enjoy.
Crossover.
Yeah.
And just with, Mitch Ryan and Catherine Lee Scott, you got huge crossovers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I was
and
actually
Art Wallace.
And Art Wallace, yeah. I was just watching an episode of The Next Generation, Star Trek The Next Generation yesterday. It was the Lower Decks episode that I assume inspired the animated Lower Decks premise. What inspired you to start writing the daybook entries? Because I know what it is. It was the Burton film, right? Do you want to go there or not?
Yeah. Well, no, we can absolutely go there. That is after a long process in between.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Burton film. And I, like a lot of other people, had been desperately hoping for a contemporary articulation of Dark Shadows that would communicate to the culture of why we were so loyal to it, of what we found as having value in it. If you liked these, marvelous regional theater productions of Shakespeare, wait until you see a Kenneth Branagh movie. And it was kind of that hope that was behind it. And then the movie happened, the trailer happened. And, when we started to see these images, a lot of us worked very hard to rationalize why any of this looked the way it did. And, I was not in the fandom at that point, although I was a fan, but I could just hear the hearts of fans breaking as they saw those images. Now, of course, we have to countenance that, a lot of people saw those images, unfamiliar with Dark Shadows, and really got turned on by it.
They did. They were the original show. Yeah.
And great, wonderful. And we've spent a lot of time as older fans kind of encouraging that and going, well, yeah, but it did bring in young fans and so on and so forth. And that's great. But you know what? That discounts pain. Yeah. And people can say, oh, it's just a movie or whatever. Well, then that's like saying Dark Shadows is just a TV show, and why are we wasting our time with it? Our time is spent with it because it matters. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I ended up doing the watch through. I came away from the preview when it officially dropped, I guess with the Super Bowl or something, thinking I got to do something. And so I did that watch through. I did the 45-day watch through, which was like a walkabout. It literally was. It was a transformative experience. This was no binge. I mean, this was quite an athletic slog. 10 hours a day, 45 days. The technical snafus that would put me behind, and so sometimes I would be watching, not just 10 hours, but sometimes 15, 20 hours at a time just to stay on schedule, because that was important. And I wanted the viewing of the show to be as inconvenient as the production of it was, in a lot of ways. And it was terrific. That got me in touch with Wallace, who was also sort of coming up right at the same time with Collinsport Historical Society. So the two things were almost symbiotic. And Wallace and I are born within a few months of each other, and had a lot of the same cultural experiences, and just enough that was different that it was a beautiful partnership. And so he was very generous in inviting me in, and I wrote this and that. We did some books on horror movies and so on and so forth. And I had the idea of doing an episode guide. Now, episode guides have been done before, but either I feel like they were too short for what I wanted, or they were wonderfully exhaustive, and exhausting. Like, the concordances or something like that, which are great sources, but that's not casual reading. And I was thinking about something, be about, a 5 or 6 sentence paragraph per episode that would give you a sense of being able to capture the show. And Wallace said no. He said, we've seen stuff like that. We've got stuff like that. But he had this crazy idea. And that was, why don't you write about episodes on the day that they were filmed? And I said, okay, write about what? And he said, well, write about the backstory and the production and so on and so forth. 1,225 episodes? Are you out of your fucking mind? No, what? No, I can't do that. And I still don't know if I did. And so I started writing them, and they were all, it was every episode filmed on that day at first, jammed together. And that was just leaving me breathless. I barely had time to watch them all, much less write about them. And so quality was all over the map. And Wallace said, hey, Patrick, fine. Just do one episode a day. And I said, thank you. And so the quality started to climb. But Wallace was a wonderful editor. He is very hands-on by being hands-off. And you'd ask how something was, and you'd get, it was good, man. And that was about it. And you knew that, okay, he's going to publish it. But, I knew that he had some other vision in mind. And it was when I wrote about the episode where they get back from 1795. And I talked about it as a soft reboot. And I started to get into exactly what Wallace wanted. And what Wallace wanted was he wanted it to focus on the placement of the episode in the story, in the overall story of Dark Shadows. And I love the idea as one big story. And he wanted to talk about the story of where that episode fit in the production, in the life of the production. Mm-hmm. And so by sussing those things out, and by looking at them together, I actually was able to begin to put together behind the scenes stuff. And it was 2 separate stories then that I was writing, the story of the production of the show and the story of the show itself. Yeah. And the more I did it, the more I found there was stuff to talk about. Yeah. And I was amazed that once I got good at it, they got exhausting, because they started out as being something I knock out in 45 minutes or less. And I started spending about 4 hours a day on them. Yeah. And they were good. I think that they did everything I could to talk about why the episode's important, why the show overall is important, and what it had to do with the culture at the time and our time. Yeah. And so that became a real pleasure, an intimidating one. And I couldn't really think about that. I just had to keep going.
Yeah. So. Excellent. And I haven't gone into the Burton film yet. People have requested it. Maybe I will do an episode on it at some point. We will see, because I have some pretty strong feelings about that film too. But you talk here about there's talking about Dark Shadows. There's clearly something deeper at work in this franchise than fake fangs and wild hairdos. Something that kept a generation of frightened children company in the dark, and then kept them company as adults when the dark came back in different forms. You are not merely drawn to a television show, you are drawn to a way of seeing, a world where strangers know what the natives have forgotten, where monster is only an opinion, and where the lost always do. That's great, and that's very well said. And Dark Shadows, it's like a beacon to people who do feel a little bit like Outsiders, and this is a show where the outsiders are the stars of the show. I want to get to the hero's journey of Barnabas, which we talk about in the book as well. I want to get to that because that's such an important aspect of Dark Shadows for all of these characters. And a friend of mine, my friend Erin, who you met actually, is watching Dark Shadows now, and she's in 1897 right now. And she's in the process now of seeing Quentin's transformation as he goes through. So it's such an interesting thing.
It's almost the same story. It's just crammed down
Yeah.
in a very, very digestible form.
Right. And Angelique's too, even in that storyline. This is where Angelique.
She, for me, is the hidden main character of 1897.
Yeah, she becomes this ally to them. Yeah.
It's all about transformation.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I do want to jump into that, because I do have a bunch of things I want to bring up here. But you talk about the Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And if you have not read, folks, Hero, the Thousand Faces, definitely read that. Talk about the hero's journey with regard to Barnabas.
Wow. Daybook Unbound actually is built on the hero's journey.
Yeah.
So those separate sections. Well, you have a character who thinks he's okay, thinks everything's all right, and it isn't. And his innocence is shaken, and he is cast out of his normal world. And what does he have to do but figure out, who he's going to be with these new powers and new abilities? And is he going to be good? Is he going to be evil? He then crosses the threshold in so many ways, the threshold of life and death. He gets kicked out of his house. He gets kicked out of, modern society and so on and so forth, modern days of 1795. And then crosses a larger threshold, literally a point of no return, when he finds himself in 1967. And there he truly has to decide who he's going to be and what that's going to look like. His goal changes. Collinwood was built for him. It was built for him to carry on the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeremiah was gonna, let's face it. But Barnabas, he was. Barnabas had no seeming job at the cannery or the shipbuilding, the shipwright or whatever, the foundry. What do they call the place where they build ships? Place where they build ships.
The shipyard. I don't know.
Shipyard. Yeah. I don't get the idea. I think maybe he had a job that he showed up at maybe he was director of public relations. But not a lot to do. His job was to carry on the Collins family.
Yeah.
And so without that job, what's left for him but if he could not satisfy his father's vision, he could make sure that others could. And I think his relationship with his father is extremely important to him and heartbreaking. I mean, for me, the main character of 1795 is Joshua. And I just watch and talk about it to no end. And so he uses the powers that are at his disposal. And what he finds is that he is misguided because, unlike other characters on the hero's journey, he doesn't really have formal mentors. He has side mentors. Because he's not a dynastic vampire, he's not an elder, he's not going to show up and tell him what to do. But he has Julia, who's both a companion and a mentor in the field of discovering what it means to be human. He has Willie Stokes to a certain extent, and so he has to, with them, be his own mentor, which is something that we don't see in the hero's journey very often. And after a lot of puberty, essentially, which is where he shows up in 1967, of having all these sudden found powers of kind of adulthood. What happens? But he's misusing them, and Sarah appears to him and says, mm-hmm. You got to be good.
Would that be the call to action there, right? When Sarah appears to him?
Yes, I would say so. It's a very, when we think of the hero's journey, we think of it as on a regular story's timetable. And some of the sections of the hero's journey on Dark Shadows are much longer than others, but that would be the call to. It's a wonderful call. Yeah, that would be a call to action where I'm not going to show up again until you're good. And he thinks that that means doing good, like a superhero with a sunlight allergy. And so that's what he does. And it's wonderful. He saves the Collins family again and again. But it's not quite what she meant. He even finds love again with the real Josette at the end of 1897, where we think of him at the apex of who he is. But this is an illusion. And he gets knocked down again and goes into the true belly of the beast, the Leviathans, parallel time, until he has everything taken away. And then he has to figure out who he really is as he goes home. Yeah. And does home mean? Well, 1840 is about as close as you get. But home ultimately is Angelique. She's the last thing he has. And I think he realizes, the show doesn't come out and say it, I think he realizes that that forgiving her is the only thing that's left. Because who else do they have to kill? Who else do they have to blame? No one but themselves. Yeah. And so to survive, to go home, which is the whole point of the hero's journey, with the elixir. Yes. The elixir in this case is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that's what got them into trouble in the first place, is the inability to forgive.
Yeah. Yep. And you draw an interesting parallel to what you said in your introduction to in terms of yourself with the Collinsport Historical Society, because that was, you were writing a lot for the Collinsport Historical Society with these daybook entries, and it was, a big part of the fandom at that time, the Collinsport Historical Society. And sadly, when it ended, you do talk about sort of that sense of identity and being so tied to that, and that now that was gone, and where is home now, because that was home to you. So it is an interesting parallel there, even for yourself, I'm sure.
That's been a very interesting journey. It's been a journey full of a lot of the unexpected. There's a lot I can say that I probably shouldn't, but
you've continued I mean, with the daybooks, it's like you've kind of reinvented your play. Instead of being part of a website that's not active anymore, you have now established yourself as an author of these articles in book form.
Yes, and I am, and I did them for Wallace and for the cause, and ultimately, I think what I figured out is I had to do them for me, because if you do them for the cause, then you expect praise from the cause. You expect specific types of praise, and sometimes that's there, sometimes it's not. And when it's not, and I think it should be, that's kind of jarring. But that's part of growing up. And that has been a little of my experience with this. And so it's one of the reasons why I haven't gone nuts with publicity and all these other things with this particular book, is I don't have quite the place in social media that I did at one time because of some interesting events. But also it keeps it a little pure. I mean, I'm doing this, and I'm a little beyond. I'm sure Jewel will talk about it, and I may start a Twitter again. I don't know, to get the word out, and people who want it will find it, and that's what matters. Yeah. And I'm not going to worry about people who find it and don't need it, because they don't need it, and that's up to them too. But the people who do need it tend to be very vocal about it, and I've been very flattered by that.
Yeah. Speaking of you, I mean, I mentioned, Catherine, John Logan, Mark B. Perry wrote pieces for this, and I love how Mark described the book as a dazzling Victorian cabinet. I'm sorry, John described it as a dazzling Victorian cabinet of curiosities, which is exactly such a perfect description, because there are so many different tones and different, because you get serious and you get, and analytical about things, but then you mix fun pop culture references as well, and there are humorous aspects too. And it's like, I love how you're just pulling an episode off the shelf and taking it apart and looking at what makes it tick, but in a fun way and in an intelligent way. And I speaking of fun, like I have a couple of quotes that I pulled here, like episode 357, Burke is DC, Anthony Peterson is Marvel. And that's the Sam Hall touch. Just as tough, but with a slightly more fragile sense of humanity. That would also be the balance Barnabas would demonstrate on his roads to redemption, rise, fall, and rise. Like I never would have thought to describe Burke and Anthony Peterson that way, but that's totally like if you know Marvel and DC, that's totally on point, right?
Yeah.
And talk about Julia, episode 900. Julia brilliantly emerging as the gritty heroine of what is essentially an adventure about an occult pandemic. Who better to face it down? Awesome. Yeah, because it's interesting because Julia kind of takes the lead as the hero of the
She becomes the hero of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how stone cold badass she is when she goes to parallel time and when she goes to 1840 and she's alone and we realize, oh my God, all of this was to prepare us for maybe who the real hero is. And that's Julia. But Julia finds herself on her own in a strange time, having to make it up, having to assume a false identity, just like Barnabas does in 1967. So it mirrors his experience in a lot of ways.
And I wish if the show had continued, that dynamic of like the Holmes and Watson dynamic with Barnabas and Julia was really cool. Like them kind of investigating these supernatural disturbances that are threatening Collinwood. It's kind of a fun thing. And I wish, we saw that in 1842. And I wish we had, if the show had continued, I'm sure we would have seen more of that. So John Carlin. You talked about John Carlin earlier as the one you would like to contact via seance from the Dark Shadows cast. And you have a great quote about John Carlin here from episode 506. And I want to talk a little bit about John Carlin. You say, I curse John Carlin's robust career because it kind of kept him from doing even more episodes of Dark Shadows. No matter how bland an installment might be, there's no such thing as time wasted watching Carlin act. And watching him act the characters and dialogue he inspired from the writers. The character of Willie really is the rug that ties the room together, despite being walked on and sometimes micturated upon. He is necessary in almost every episode, and his absence becomes apparent when you imagine any Loomisless episode with him woven in. It gets better, always. John Carlin, thou art the bacon of acting and never the ham. Well said, well said. So talk a little bit about John Carlin. Like, what inspired that right there? Because I have not ever spoken to any fan who had anything negative to say about John Carlin's performances in Dark Shadows, or John Carlin in general, really. But in the show, he is just his performances are all him and Nancy Barrett too. I don't know, they're really strong in their portrayals. But John Carlin is sensational.
Well, in the Triumvirate, Star Trek has its Triumvirate, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And Dark Shadows has its Triumvirate, and it unconsciously mirrors on the Procrustean bed of my reasoning the Trek Triumvirate in a lot of ways. Of course, Barnabas has to, at the end, have the final word, usually rash and ill thought out, but not because Julia and Willie didn't try their best to talk him out of it. You got Julia. I want to say this about Julia. Here you have this character Spock, who is seemingly one way. What we see on the surface is cold, rational, logical person, but as Kirk says at his funeral, he was the most human person he'd ever met. And so, under Julia's incredible ballsy irascibility, and that was the cat, and just sheer balls of her, she is nevertheless this incredibly warm individual. She's really this voice of kindness, that is so important for Barnabas. Well, then you have Willie, who is seemingly this sleazy criminal, who is Barnabas's conscience over and over again. And it's because Willie can speak the truth. Dark Shadows is all about class issues, and it it takes someone truly from the outside to wring his hands. I call him the jitteriest housefrau in Collinwood. This is Barnabas's wife essentially. Always worried about what he's going to go do. Once he comes back from Wincliffe, all he does is kind of worry, and it's even funnier. And that he can call shenanigans on the whole thing when it's necessary, and he always did. But now that he's no longer evil and he's there willingly, it becomes all the more touching. I mean, if we can have troubled relationships with people where we don't really estimate their worth at its true value, and yet somehow those people estimate us at our true value and hang around anyway, oh, what a compliment. And that's what Willie does for Barnes. And the humor of the show, I often call Dark Shadows a sitcom, and certain episodes are. And when you look at it like a sitcom, it's a sitcom because white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture, WASP culture, is all about denial. It's all about, the obvious apocalyptic stuff happening and everyone trying to ignore it to keep up appearances. Well, Willie has nothing invested in that system. And, good guilty Catholic, I'm sure. And, from the wrong side of the tracks. And so he sees everything, and he doesn't know why everyone isn't saying the same truths as he is. And how wonderful, what a great vehicle for commentary, and what a necessary voice in Barnabas's life. He is a Baldric with common sense. But, even Baldric on Blackadder had moments where he was able to speak very plain, simple truths that Edmund was ignoring.
Yeah.
But that he can say. And what a fun person to do it. John Carlin's just fun.
Yeah.
He was a fun man, and he had fun performances.
Can't get bored watching John Carlin, no matter which character he played, especially Willie. But I loved Carl too. Carl was great too.
God.
Yeah.
With so much monstrousness, he is so human.
Yeah.
He is all of the humanity the show could possibly carry, injected into one person.
Yeah. And you also always write glowingly about Thayer David as well. Sometimes what do we call it, like a swaggering stag of a Professor Stokes. But
his testosterone setting off the smoke alarm.
But I love the way, like, just the the episodes where he tries to exorcise Quentin's ghost and stuff, and you go into that. And but he's great too. He's another, like I mentioned, John Carlin's always on point. Nancy Barrett is too. But Thayer David, big time. As far as, like, I don't even remember Thayer David ever botching a line or going up on a line or anything like that.
No, didn't. He was fantastically disciplined.
Yeah.
And Thayer dealt with some challenges off screen, and those challenges make the pristine, airtight quality of his performances all the more admirable.
Yeah. It's such a shame that he never really got to experience the Dark Shadows fandom. I think that he would have, like, Grayson lived until it was 84, 85. She passed away, and she never went to one of the conventions, but she sure was aware that was going on. Thayer passed away, was it 1978 or 79? So it was just like the beginnings of the Dark Shadows fandom coalescing, and I have a feeling he would have really enjoyed it, because I remember reading, it was Craig Hamrick's book, the Dark Shadow, Barnabas and Company, and I think it was his nephew was interviewed and said that Thayer had like Aurora monster model kits and used to like building them and stuff, and I was like,
great.
Yeah, I was like, was he like a fan, like a horror fan? Like, like I would have loved to have met him and talked to him, because he must have been really just a cool person.
Brilliant, Harvard educated.
Yeah.
Football player, the most handsome man on campus.
Yeah,
when he was a student.
Yeah. And just great portrayals in the show. Now you talk about, we mentioned that you cover the pre-Barnabas episodes, which was something I remember. I think I brought it up at some point when we talked about. I asked if you were ever going to cover those, and you did. And here are some. So you devoted a sentence or two to each one. You'd have every episode, a list of all of those with 209 episodes, and you have a sentence or two describing each one. They're effing hilarious. So in a very Patrick-ish way, you do cover every pre-Barnabas episode. For example, number 7, episode 7. Roger suspects that a man he unfairly imprisoned has mixed emotions towards him.
That really is the gist of the episode.
It does. I will say, even though these are short, they really capture you really get it to the heart of each of these episodes. Episode 57. The people of Collinsport are disturbed by the fact that the 100-foot impact that killed Bill also may have harmed the resale value of his wristwatch.
It's true. I'm worried about the watch.
Poor Bill Malloy. Justice for Bill Malloy. I wish we had gotten a parallel time Bill Malloy, played by Frank Schofield. That would have been really brought him back. He was really good. Episode 76. Burke announces his plans to buy everything with the name Collins on it. This does not include Gary Collins.
Hangar 18.
I love it. So
Yeah.
talk about your pre-Barnabas write-ups here.
Well, those was actually done a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
I for a long time, my first Dark Shadows writing project was called the Collins Chronicles, that were available online. And if you write to me through anybody, you can get them from me. But what it was it was a series of little pieces of writing that formed an episode companion.
Mhm.
And so every episode had a diary entry or a news article or something like that from that was pursuant to that episode, that would kind of fill in some of the backstory and give you some of the inner monologue. And is how I was able to establish Barnabas's interest in Angelique, so it would not be a non sequitur. Even though he wasn't always aware of it, he would talk about her incessantly. And so as I was doing that, I decided I finished the series. And so I was going to go back and do the early part of the series. And it occurred to me to just do this smart ass episode guide that would be one sentence per episode. And so with my girlfriend at the time, who was the voice of the Collinsport Historical Society podcast.
Oh yeah, I remember her. Yeah.
And all of that. Yeah, she and I sat down, and she was a real caution. She was something else, and a completely irreverent sense of humor. And so she and I would sit around, and I would come up with those to amuse her. And am I a clown? Do I amuse you? And so that's where those came from. And it was, again, one of those things that was in the vaults. It was never something really that was suitable for what Wallace was doing. And I thought, I'm doing this book, and this is here, and I got to get these things out. I got to get this stuff in there. And I thought of your admonition that I didn't write enough, because I do write about those here and there, but it's not a lot. And so I thought, by God, I'm going to get every single episode. And I think it's an amusing way to cover that first part of the series.
One more quote here I want to read, which I think to close it out before we talk about where we can get this book and when. I love this. This is from your intro. Some houses are built of timber and stone. Collinwood was built of something older and more dangerous: memory, longing, and second chances. I first crossed its threshold at 11 years old and knew immediately, the way children know things before they've learned to doubt themselves, that I had come home. Here was a world that did not fear the strange, the broken, or the different. Here was a family assembled not by blood, but by need, forgiveness, and a stubborn refusal to abandon one another in the dark. That feeling never left, but the years change, and what you're carrying when you come back to it. I love this. I don't know if you want to elaborate or say anything else about that. I think that's just a beautiful way to phrase it.
It kind of stands on its own, I hope. There was there's collecting the essays, and that was fun. And then the more thought has gone into how I frame them and how I present them and what I do with them. And, because my voice is pretty distinctive, I think, it's easy to look at these and say, oh, that Patrick. And, because I have fun. But at the same time, this is about Dark Shadows. This is not about me. And so Dark Shadows is about all of us. There was a thought that existed for a long time of, well, what are people who don't know anything about Dark Shadows going to say about these books? Well, actually, they like them, which is a lot of fun. I'm really proud of that. But let's face it, the third one of these, people who don't know Dark Shadows are not really going to be buying it, and that's fine. It's for us. And there are a lot of goofy divisions, I think, within fandom. And I think that happens at the expense of unity. And that happens at the expense of saying, you know what, we all came to Collinwood for the same reasons. And that's what binds us at the end of the day. And so I wanted to make sure that in this one, I use that as a unifying principle, that this is a book about Dark Shadows and about our relationship with Dark Shadows, not just my relationship, our relationship. And that was something that really struck me when I wrote what is essentially the final piece in the book, which is of the formal body of the book, which is the Laura Parker obituary.
Yeah.
And I ended that by talking about what a horrible, horrible, horrible event that was. But it had the virtue, her life had the virtue of bringing us together, and that it is a horrible pain, but what a gift it is that we do get to manage it and navigate it, and that we are together.
Yeah, excellent. And we will literally all be together, or as many of us as can make it, to the 60th anniversary Dark Shadows Festival out in Los Angeles this summer. It's coming up soon, a little over a month away. We're going to be having a good time in LA. So I really look forward to seeing you there. And you're also involved with some of the programming there.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
So talk about that.
I would love to. Ansel Faraj and Alan Gallant, and it was sort of my Bob Zamuda, and I are engaged in putting on a series of scenes, sort of done as old school radio almost, shortened classic highlights from Hamlet, close-ups of moments from the show. And we're very lucky to have many of the actors from both Dark Shadows, the original, and Dark Shadows, the 91 version, who look like they're going to be joining us for that. And so the actors will not always be playing the characters we associate with them. So we'll actually get to see their take on characters they didn't play. It's kind of mixed up as a repertory should. And I assembled the spine of that show a couple of weeks ago, and with Ansel's help and with Alan's help. And the thing that was amazing to me is that I kind of sat down and I thought, okay, I gotta make people happy. It's to be, and it was sort of had this air of one more thing. And then I got done with it, and I was ashamed at having felt that, because I thought, what a wonderful opportunity. What a great thing that I was getting to consider casting with these people, these giants who've taught us so much and given us so much. And you get to know the actors as humans, and that's a great thing. But also, don't let that sense of familiarity and humanity rob you of seeing them for what they did give you, which was a huge thing. And I thought, this is just a magical opportunity to see, much less to be a part of. And I'm humbled beyond. I know this is, I'm gifted with hyperbole, better than anything else. But seriously, I'm gifted with hyperbole, but it is the best gift, the most humbling thing that could possibly be given to any of us. And I'm just thrilled beyond words to even be within 100 miles of it.
That's really exciting, and people are going to be losing their minds to see, Dark Shadows cast members playing some. I assume some will be playing the roles they played, and some will be playing other characters from the show.
Yes.
So that'll be really cool. And is this going to be present? Is this going to be during the luncheon part, or is it its own separate
I
thing? Or
think it's its own separate thing, although I don't know.
okay,
That's up to Mary and the gods of programming and so on.
okay, gotcha. All right, cool, very exciting. Now, with regard to the Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant, I assume you're going to have it at your table. When is it going to be available for? Yeah, I was going to say, when is it going to be available for online, like to
Yeah,
order?
I'm putting the finishing touches on the typesetting of it probably today,
Mhm.
tomorrow. The cover's done, and that was done quite a while ago. And so just getting the nitty gritty of that and getting it uploaded into Amazon. That's what's left, and waiting for the turnaround time on that. So my fervent hope is that it will be available by certainly by the convention, if not a week or two before.
Okay, great. So when I find out when it's out, I will definitely announce it on the podcast in the news segment and let people know about that. And thank you for sending the cover along. I have been showing it through the episode, and it's a really cool cover. I was like, oh, that would be an awesome tattoo because I have thought about getting. I've not done a Dark Shadows tattoo.
I
I
did
haven't
the
done a
tattoo
tattoo.
mock-ups for you.
You did send me some. Yeah, I might do one inspired by that look of that. It's really cool. And would you know the price of the book yet, or?
Alan and I have talked about that a little bit. Probably, given its length, maybe 24.95.
Okay.
It'll be in trade paper. If I do a hardcover, obviously that'll be more. But what I want to do at the convention is basically have a convention price of, don't hold me to this, of about $19 per book for
Oh,
the
nice.
books, but then 50, if you pay 50, you get all 3 books.
Oh, nice. That's a good deal. All right, how many books would it take to cover every single episode of Dark Shadows of Daybooks?
Gosh, that's a wonderful question. More than I want to write. Wow. I would say at the length of the daybook essays, probably 7 or 8.
7 or 8, yeah. Do you think you'll do it? No.
Because one of the gifts that Wallace gave me was the right to take a day off whenever I wanted to,
Yeah.
which would usually be a month long, and also to write about what interested me
Yeah.
that day. So, all of Dark Shadows is wonderful. Some parts are more wonderful than others, and that's what I focused on. So what I don't want is for this to be something where I'm held to the same standard for every single episode, because not every single episode holds itself to the standard of the others.
Right.
And I don't want to be a hack and write about stuff that is not necessarily going to grab me and just slough my way through.
Gotcha.
So.
That's a good reason to not. But I did cross my mind. I was like, I wonder if he's going to do every single episode over the course of these books.
You know what? There is a hero of the beach, and his name is Danny Horn, and he did that, and he did it brilliantly. And so, for that, you have plenty of time to read both of us, and especially for the episodes I don't cover, he does, and he does it magnificently.
Well, there you go. So you have plenty of options here. You can read. I encourage you to read Patrick's books. Pick them up. Read Danny Horn's blog, which is also really good. You have lots of Dark Shadows analysis. There are several other people who are doing these types of things. I'm sorry, Asilius. Asilius is somebody else who's
yeah. We have mixed feelings on the Kentucky identity.
Dark Shadows Before I Die. There's that. All right. Well, thank you very much, Patrick. It was great chatting with you. And
thank you so much.
Oh my God.
You do.
Oh gosh, it's my pleasure. It's great chatting with you. I was really excited that the new book was going to be coming out in time for the 60th. So that's exciting.
Honestly, it was just an excuse to get back on the show.
Well, we don't need an excuse for that. The last time you were, and it wasn't even about a book. We were just, I forgot what our topic was. Oh, it's Dark Shadows fading.
Dark Shadows. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like now that now I don't think with the 60th, it definitely doesn't feel like Dark Shadows is fading at all because all this stuff coming out. So hopefully, I know there's going to be a panel at San Diego Comic-Con. I think it's Hermes Press, but it's Dark Shadows centric, and Catherine is going to be there at Comic-Con and stuff. So I'm glad there's something Dark Shadow, the Curse of Dark Shadows graphic novel is going to be, I think everything Hermes does with Dark Shadows, plus having Catherine there, it's kind of a Dark Shadows-y panel.
Oh, Hermes. Oh, Hermes. Feel free to do second editions of the Dark Shadows Daybooks. Oh,
Ooh,
Hermes.
there you go.
I'm just saying.
All right. Well, thanks again, Patrick, and folks. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Keep an eye out on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com for Dark Shadows Daybook Triumphant, and I hope to see you all at the Dark Shadows 60th Anniversary Festival. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Terror at Collinwood is a Penny Dreadful production.